Rahbat Yisar. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. Namaste. Peace and blessings to all those around the world. It's a beautiful day to be alive. It's definitely a wonderful day to be here in Carrot Bars. So I have a slideshow for y'all today. Let me back it on up. And it's called What the Future Holds. I put this together. I did get a lot of this information from one core source, but only because not because I was being lazy, but because they had most of what I needed, and the way that it corresponds with each other is better and more easy to explain. I'm hoping everybody can hear me. Obviously, you see I'm doing something a little bit new. Lakeisha McKnight, okay, she loved it. All right, good, good, good. We're in effect. So we're using multiple programs here, as you can see. You know, I love this stuff. So I plan on turning it up. I should be equally right now on YouTube Live also. So I'm going to give people a chance to get in here. I know it's a new platform. I thank you all. Okay, golden morning, Lakeisha McKnight. What's up, sis? Yeah, you see, I'm kind of combining platforms here. So, of course, when that's going to be one of my broadcasting students there, I'm going to help her really turn her stuff up, her already amazing existing show. I'm going to help her to make some amazing improvements to it. And yes, I look forward to that. I look forward to working with you, sis. Yeah, I'm excited this morning. I'm really excited because I'm able to do something a little bit different. And I was able to pull some technologies together. I really, it's really difficult actually what I'm doing right now to combine everything together. But now that I know how to do it, it's not too bad. And so, Lakeisha McKnight, you did ask me about that program. Can you bring in guests? So, from what I understand, yes, you can bring in up to 6 guests, which is pretty cool. So, I'm going to still let a few people get a chance to get on here. Hopefully, I got my YouTube audience. Let me go ahead and view on my YouTube page so I can check them out. And then I got my Facebook audience, my family. I love y'all. Okay. So I got a few people watching on YouTube. Peace, y'all. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate y'all being here. I'm going to drop something on here. Okay, so I got Lenny Bones, my man. Okay, he's over there on YouTube. I appreciate that, brother. Peace. Sir. Okay, so yeah, it's starting to jump. It's starting to jump. We're starting to get it cracking, as we used to say. So let's take a look at what the future holds, and that's what the stream about today is. And so I put this together, this slideshow for y'all, and I hope you enjoy it. So I'm gonna go here. So it's leading up to the collapse, the 1970s stagflation, right? The OPEC oil embargo and President Richard Nixon's abolishment of the gold standard triggered double-digit inflation. The government responded to this economic downturn by freezing wages and labor rates to curb inflation. The result was a high unemployment rate. Business hampered by low prices could not afford to keep the workers on unprofitable wage rates, right? So what's interesting here is it shows there's a conflict. For one, I find it interesting that he froze the wage rates there, and some reason they never seem to get unfrozen. Did you notice that? So Richard Nixon really froze the wage rates then, and as you can see, they never really went up. I mean, we've had a couple of increases, but if you look at the curve of the price, for one, the curve of inflation, the curve of the rise in the price of goods, and then you look at the wage increase, it's a joke, right? So let me zoom in on that a little bit. Y'all can see it a little better. It's a joke though. So let me go on to number 2. So I just wanted to start us in the 70s. Of course, this goes back much further. So 1989, you had the savings and loan crisis. And so that was right leading into 1990 there, but we had the savings and loan crisis. Okay, yeah, thanks, Lakeisha. I appreciate that. I appreciate that, sis. So in the savings and loan crisis, we had 1,000 banks closed after improper real estate investments turned sour, right? So this means there was 1,000 different banks that made so many different lending um, bad decisions, or because of the economy, whatever the case was, people were going to fall in default and not be able to pay them back. And the result was that thousands of banks have failed in a relatively small amount of time. And you can imagine, think about how much cash each bank is responsible for holding. That's a lot of money that's kind of moving around in probably a way that most people would prefer not to. Charles Keating and other savings and loan bankers had misused bank depositors' funds. And that's where a lot of this comes from. It comes from them cheating. It comes from them cheating us and doing every underhanded thing that they can think of to manipulate us and to make themselves more wealthy while we become more poor. And I would say that it's not fair. We shouldn't have to endure it, and we don't have to endure it. And that's why I'm here to teach y'all some financial literacy, and really I shouldn't even say teach y'all, because I know I'm here with a whole bunch of people that already have amazing, background and just total in-depth knowledge of financial literacy already. But I like to build with y'all, let's say. So that's what I'm doing here today. So we'll take a look, and then they said the consequent recession triggered an unemployment rate as high as 7.5%. The government was forced to bail out some banks to the tune, of 124 billion. Right? You see that joint made me have I started having pressure much. 124 billion. Isn't that crazy? The government was forced to bail out some banks to the tune of 124 billion. And there again, I talk about the numbers then and the numbers now. Look at the numbers now. Look at how much money they have to give the banks right now. It's crazy. If you see these numbers, I mean, you're going to be really and truly blown away by what's going on. So I want to say good morning to a few people. I got Karen Johnson Gilliam. Good morning, sis. And all WBW, of course. Debbie Nixon. Hey, what's up with you, sis? I appreciate you. Yeah, thank you. That's a nice statement. Rahubat Moisar, my man Mark Hammonds, family, what's up with you? James A. Marshall, thank you. He calls me Brother Consul. I received that, brother. And one day I'll be just that, if not already. I appreciate y'all. Thank you all for joining today. It's a beautiful day to be alive, if I haven't said it already, and a wonderful day to be in this company. So I'm giving y'all some bad news, but I got some good news at the end of this. Let me go ahead and move forward here. So we're number 3. We had the 9/11, right? 9/11 was the big one for number 3. And so, we don't know. There's a lot of conspiracy theories, as they say, about this, whether it was an inside job. But one thing that was interesting, it was interesting timing for a recession that was already due to happen anyway, and something that they could kind of, push off on something else. I see I got my notifications coming in down there. That's probably not the best place to have them. I'll fix that in the future. So, if we think about 9/11, and, there's a lot of evidence that it wasn't, at the very least, we weren't told the complete truth about what happened. So if that's the case, then, it's interesting that how these things get kind of blamed on these situations, that sometimes there may even be evidence that were caused by us, including what's going on with the corona now. There's so many different ways this could have been handled. I think that's really going to be looked upon in the future and acknowledged more so than it is today. But I think when we look back, we're really going to see how some of these things are basically just huge smoke screens for economic collapses that are inevitable based on the broken system as it is. There it is. I said it. All right. I said it. And that's how I feel. Wessaker, Abek, Atum, Rahubat. That's my sponsor. Thank you for saying yes, brother. Christopher Voorhees. Good morning. 50 Shades of Jay. Good morning, brother. Oh, I see Michael Dalcoat done touch base. Dang, I got the masters on here today. What an honor. What an honor. So I'm going to go forward one from here. Well, before I do, let me blow this back up, because if you see, it says the United States response to the war on terror has cost the nation 6.4 trillion and counting. And that's another thing that could have been, if we're talking about reason or motive for having such a calamity and causing it, themselves, that would lend to that motive of those so-called conspirators. But that's a whole nother story. There's just a lot of money that I wanted to kind of emphasize. So then we fast forward here, we're up to the 2008 financial crisis. And man, I think everybody, even the boomers and everybody, knows about this one. So we got the early warning signs of the 2008 financial crisis were rapidly falling housing prices, increased mortgaging defaults in 2006. Now, what did Robert Kiyosaki just say? He was just talking about how he has people and they cannot pay. This is going on. So some people will default because they're not getting the money, right? Robin Davis, good morning. Because they're not getting the money. So they won't be able to pay the banks. And the banks have that, that F you pay me kind of sentiment where, hey, it's not their problem. And in certain regards, it's not. But it's just kind of you would want them to have more compassion, maybe how long you've been with them, or the genuineness you showed them. But that's not how banks play this game. So let's take a look back into that. So left unattended, the resulting subprime mortgage crisis, which panicked investors and led to massive bank withdrawals, spread like wildfires across the financial community. The U.S. government had no choice but to bail out too big to fail banks and insurance company like Bear Stearns and AIG on face both national and global financial catastrophes. See, so if they didn't bail them out, they would have faced catastrophes, right? Well, the thing is, they had to do the same thing this time. And that little $1,200 stimulus check, I hope you use that to get some gold. I'm going to tell you why. Because they given the millionaires millions and millions of dollars. For every 100 you got, they got $1 million. And really, and didn't even need it. They bailed out islands of wealthy people that didn't even need the money. Meanwhile, particularly ethnically owned, people of color, business districts like that are suffering and not getting the help they need. But this is how the game is played. So we have to understand it, and we have to overcome it. And hopefully, I can help you to do that today with some of the financial literacy I'm sharing with you here. So let's get right into the next one. We have number 5 is of course, this is the one like that I talk about from the future. This is what they're going to look at it from the future with. This is the way they're going to be talking about in the future. They're going to be talking about the 2020 was another collapsing point because of the corona. But we know, as financial literacy students of people like Mr. Michael Dalco, Mr. Ty Best, we already know that that this was coming. We were warning people that this was coming. We were telling people to get some of this pure gold because this was coming. So now it's important that we understand that this is not because of the coronavirus. The coronavirus didn't help anything. Sure, it could have been a stimulus. It might have been the straw, as they say, but the camel was already overloaded. Remember, in that metaphor where the straw that broke the camel's back, remember, if one straw broke the camel's back, that must mean that camel already had too much weight, and that's what I would like to emphasize about that metaphor. Mr. Dalco said they should have been bailed out, just like citizens who pay their bills aren't bailed out. And that's right. That's right. Mr. Michael Dalco's on here today, and he makes a great point. He said they shouldn't have been bailed out. And really, they could get loans. And I mean, to continue, they don't need to be bailed out. And we're not getting bailed out. A lot of these small businesses, there's not going to be money to bail them out. And they shouldn't have been. Great point. Thank you, brother. So let me go on. So it says it's it's too soon to tally up the total cost of the 2020 corona pandemic. The crisis is still ongoing. Already, we have seen worldwide supply chain interruptions. And what's interesting, if you're not familiar with the term supply chain, is supply chain now that's kind of how everything works, right? There's no one company that builds all the parts for one component. So say that I wanted to build computers, well, I get my processors from there, my plugs from there, my power accessories from there, my screens from there. All of these would come from different places. Maybe they'd be assembled at one factory, right? But none of the parts would be built in the same factory. And so as those parts come together to create one product, that's like kind of a great way maybe to give you a brief explanation of what the supply chain is. Now, the problem with that, if one of those products falls short, the power supply cords, any of these things fall short, you can now not deliver a whole product, right? And so with this coronavirus, there's been supply chain interruptions, particularly in China. As you know, certain factories have shut down completely. Now they're opening back up. They're doing well. But the interesting point here is that during that time, there was massive disruptions in certain products that could be assembled and put together. And of course, that's happening here now. And then you look at the meat industry, people are infected in the meat industry. Oh, that's kind of scary. So now it's harder to get meat. And if you could, do you even want to buy it? So all of these things start to kind of add into. And what I'm going to get into in a minute is much scarier, okay? Because what could happen, what may just happen is, well, I'm just going to fast forward past here for a second, okay? Because I want to take a look at this. This is the U.S. economy collapse. What will happen and how to prepare? What will happen and how to prepare? Now, these are the main things that everybody, I feel like, should or will at one point feel is valuable. Number one is currency. Number two is food. Number three is electricity, power, Wi-Fi, etc. And then, of course, four is water. These are the basics. But you see, one is currency. And if you notice on the chart that I have there, that one is gold. Real currency, real money is gold. There's not a bunch of paper piled up there. You don't see stacks of hundreds, right? You don't see stacks of $100 bills, and there's a reason for this. So let me move on. I just wanted to get to those essentials. I really like them. So if the U.S. economy collapses, if if the U.S. economy collapses, what will happen? Well, the U.S. treasuries are going to plummet. Banks are going to close. Demand to outstrip supply, and this is what I was talking about. So food, water, and gas. What if there's a higher demand for those products than there becomes a supply for those products? Then we face a very interesting situation, because now, through desperation, you see what people did with the toilet paper. Come on, guys. That was just a test. That was just a psychological experiment to see how we will react. Do you know that a supermarket only holds 2 weeks worth of food? That means if they don't get a re-up, if they don't get a delivery in 2 weeks' time, they run out of food. Now, just imagine you whispered that to some of your neighbors. Everybody would run there and buy everything off them shelves right away. Meaning that if that panic were to ensue, you wouldn't have much time to get what you need. I love the other day on the power call, they were saying like the doomsday preppers were right. And they were. And the doomsday preppers were right after all, weren't they? Because they prepared for some of this stuff. But guess what? We're doomsday financial preppers because we have gold. And guess what? This will buy us any of that stuff that them doomsday people got. In fact, this will buy us into one of those buildings. This will buy us into those underground bunkers. You want me to get deep with it? This right here. When cash doesn't work, this will buy us the ticket. Hey, that's a whole nother subject. I know that's getting into too deep. Let's government utilities become unavailable. So that's electricity, water, working water, plumbing. This is real stuff, guys. And I know it seems you're like, oh, this is unfathomable. It couldn't happen here. Well, I really encourage you to look within the last 30 to 40 years what has happened in some of the other countries who were thriving, before it happened in some cases. Listen, don't think that it can't happen here. Um, it said demand for the U.S. dollar and U.S. treasuries would plummet, meaning that they would become, you know what plummet means. There's probably like words that could exemplify it better than I can't say. So it says hyperinflation, dollar loses value against other currencies. So of course, right now, if you look, our dollar, if you wanted to convert our dollar to yuan or to peso or to any of the other different currencies that exist, you could do that at a certain rate because our dollar has a certain rate value against those other dollars, and each currency is supposed to have some kind of value. The problem was all of those currencies were originally pegged to the dollar, which now has no value. So it's really all just a circus of deceit. And so the only real hard valued currency at this time is precious metals. But people say silver versus gold. Well, I'm gonna tell you why I want gold over silver. Real quick, you need over 100 pounds of silver to equal less than a kilo of gold. So while you're while you're trying to get your silver together, I'm gonna slide my whole fortune in my pocket and roll. Do you understand? I'm just saying it's more mobile, it's more flexible. To me, it makes more sense. I seen getting silver when the gold was unaffordable, but now we can afford gold. I don't see, get the gold. Get the gold. I'm a gold enthusiast. I'm gonna push that gold. Debbie Nixon said, prepare people. Thank you. That's right. Thank you for all of your ads today. I appreciate all of you. You really make this stream what it is. I gotta hurry up and get through this. I know I started late, and I do want to finish this presentation. So it said, what would happen? Okay, what would happen? If you want to understand what life is like during a collapse, think back to the Great Depression. The stock market crashed on Black Thursday. By following Tuesday, it was down 25%. Many investors lost their savings that weekend, their life savings that weekend. You hear in one weekend, they lost their life savings. One weekend. Whoo! Come on. And Debbie Nixon said it's affect all the world's economies due to many countries being pegged to the dollar's value. That's right, sis. Thank you. It says by 1932, one out of 4 people was unemployed. Wow, 25%. Now, again, look, I'm going to go back and tell you this again. Look at the current statistics. These are the things I'm not showing you. These are the things I want you to look up so that you start to get a full financial education yourself, and you start to, it's important for us to educate ourselves. But that was 1/4 of the population. Look at the numbers right now. I'm telling you, there's some interesting comparisons. But we're looking at the unemployment rates right now, but we're not looking at what life was like during the last depression. We're not looking at soup kitchens and lines to get food. We're not looking at the real. And so, people, prepare yourself the best you can. Get as much food as you can. But after you have as much food as you can, get as much gold as you can. That's what I'm telling people to do, for real. And so by 1932, 1 out of 4 people was unemployed. Wages for those who had jobs fell precipitously. Manufacturing wages dropped from 32%. So that means it's bad enough that the wage hasn't been going up at its proper rate, right? But then it had a 32% drop. So can you imagine right now, what's minimum wage? Like $7? If they take 35% of that, it'll be back under $4 to $5 an hour. So do you see what's going on? But this is happening right now. And if you, another interesting point I discovered is that you see the stock market crashed and they call that Black Thursday. So that's why Black Friday now, they sell you all of that stuff, right? To make sure that their numbers are in the black, which is, a positive thing. If they're in the red, it's in the negative, right? So Black Friday is something so that Black Thursday didn't come back around, but it's too late. It's here. And so we're experiencing another Black Thursday. It's really what it comes down to. We've never seen oil be worth less than nothing. I'm like, man, I'm gonna get me a couple barrels for negative 35. No, I don't know. I'm just joking. But let me get back in. So it says thousands of farmers, other unemployed workers moved to California and elsewhere in search of work. 2.5 million people left Midwestern Dust Bowl states. Well, that's all good, but the problem is, where are we going to go now? There is no move out west to California. That doesn't exist. There's no such thing, right? So that means that we have to live here. You can't run away. Okay. And then there's one more thing. The Dow Jones Industrial Average didn't rebound at its pre-crash level until 1954. Oh, and that reminds me, there is one more thing I wanted to show y'all before I go, which is this chart. This is a current chart. Let me blow this up for y'all. Okay. And this is what we're talking about. You see that this was the spike to 1929. And look what happened. It didn't rebound until 1954. Now look, we're facing another spike. Okay. And imagine how long it's going to take this one to bounce back. Imagine how long it's going to take this one to bounce back. But anyway, yeah, so the crash of 1930 well, it says here in 1929 was the spike, but the crash that pursued after it, which was really here in 1932-33, right? They didn't bounce back for that until 1954. So it took 20 some years to bounce back. This is interesting stuff, guys. I mean, I find it interesting. Hopefully all of you were able to find some value from this today. You know what I say. Make sure y'all tune into that power call, because this is not the power call and it's definitely not a substitute. This is the unofficial pre-power call warm-up show. My name is Kansu Hotep Atum, and I say Wadu and Au.